Let's talk about that feeling. You know the one? You are just completely drained, but you haven't really done anything physically demanding. And, of course, society has a word for it, lazy. But what if that's not the real story? What if that exhaustion isn't some kind of character flaw, but actually the side effect of a superpower?
I mean, does this sound familiar? You've just been existing, right? Answering some emails, sitting in a couple of meetings, maybe just trying to navigate the subtle currents of a conversation, and by the end of it, you're just wiped out. This isn't about getting a bad night's sleep. It's about the sheer amount of energy your brain burns just to process the world around you in such incredible, painstaking detail.
This right here, this is the perfect way to describe it. It is a total system overload. Your brain is basically on high alert all the time, just trying to function in a world that is full of noise. And I want to be really clear, this is not a failure of willpower, it's not about a lack of hustle, it's just the natural friction that happens when your mind's high-performance engine is fighting against an environment that's constantly trying to hijack it.
Okay, so let's totally reframe this whole experience. Let's just forget the label lazy. It is time to introduce a brand new identity, a new way of thinking about this that actually explains what is going on inside your head. So on the left, you see society's simple and frankly unhelpful labels. You've heard them all. But on the right, that's where we see the reality. You are a high-resolution sentinel. Your mind doesn't just see the world, it analyzes it down to the last pixel. And that is not a bug in your system, my friend. It is a powerful, powerful feature.
So what does this actually mean for you day to day? Well, it means that while pretty much everyone else might be seeing the world in low res, filtering out most of the noise, you're experiencing it all in glorious 8K. You notice the tiny flicker of the overhead light, the slight hesitation in someone's voice, the exact phrasing of an email. Your exhaustion, it's simply the price of that high-definition perception.
So, if you're a high-resolution sentinel, what is actually happening in your brain to cause this massive drain? Why does your mental RAM feel like it just fills up so fast? Let's dig into the science behind that feeling.
The key concept here is something called extraneous cognitive load. Really, the best way to think about it is just mental static. It's all the extra noise, all the junk data that your brain has to filter out before it can even get to the important stuff. The office chatter, the pressure to seem happy, all those tiny little decisions, that right there is the load. And get this, research in neuroergonomics has found that your prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your brain that handles focus and decision-making, can spend up to 60% of its energy just filtering out distractions. That's more than half of your brain power gone before you've even started your real work. It's literally like you're running a marathon just to get to the starting line.
So why does this happen? Well, it's because of something called leaky gating. Imagine your brain has this filter, right? It's designed to let in only the important information. But for a sentinel, that filter has bigger holes. More stuff gets through. So every notification, every side conversation, every random thought feels urgent, and it gets treated like a high-priority task. And this is exactly why multitasking is so devastating for you. Every switch isn't just a quick glance away. It is a full system reboot, and it costs a staggering amount of your energy.
Okay, so we get the problem. The drain is real, and it's biological. So what on earth do we do about it? Well, it is time to stop letting your environment dictate your energy levels and start becoming the architect of your attention. This right here is the absolute key shift in thinking. Your attention is like money. It is a finite currency, and every single time you spend it on something trivial or distracting, you're not just wasting time. You are literally stealing that precious energy away from your future self, from the deep work, the creativity, and the empathy that is your highest self. Now, to be the architect, you first need to know what's costing you. So let's talk about something called the decision tax. Every single unfinished task, every email you still need to write, every tough conversation you're avoiding, I want you to think of each one as an app running in the background of your mind, just silently eating up your processing power and draining your battery. And look, these leaks aren't always big things. For a high-resolution mind, even these seemingly small decisions get the full high-fidelity analysis treatment. You don't just pick something, you analyze it from every conceivable angle. That depth is your strength. But when it's wasted on low-stakes, small-fried choices, it becomes a massive energy drain.
So how do we actually plug these leaks and get our mental energy back? The solution is not about working harder, it's about working smarter, by reducing the noise. Here is a simple, practical plan to do just that. Let's call it the battery protocol. All right, here are 4 direct actions you can take starting today. First, strategic monotasking. Commit to one, and only one, task for a focused 90-minute block. I mean it. No email, no phone, no distractions. This gives your high-performance brain the clean runway it needs to do its best work. Second, the decision audit. Look at your day and find the small, repetitive choices that just drain you. What to wear, what to eat. Automate them. Create a go-to work uniform. Plan your meals for the week. Stop wasting your analytical power on these things. Third, data gating. The first hour of your day is so critical. Don't give it away to emails and news and social media. Create a no-input hour where you read or think or journal. You set the agenda for your brain, not the world. And finally, number 4, the somatic flush. When you feel that overload, that mental fan screaming, just stop. Take 3 minutes to just breathe deeply. This isn't just about relaxing. It is a physiological system reboot that calms your entire nervous system down. So please, if you take anything away from this, remember this. You are not broken. You're not lazy. You're not undisciplined. You are a high-performance, finely tuned instrument. The problem isn't the instrument. It's the incredibly noisy room it's being asked to play in. Your job is simply to find a quieter room. You know, knowing all of this is the first crucial step. But the next, and honestly the most important step, is actually doing something about it. It's time to stop just passively letting information wash over you and start consciously deciding what actually gets your focus. So the question I want to leave you with is this. How will you architect your attention?
Have you ever gotten to the end of the day and you're just completely wiped out? But when you think about it, you haven't really done anything physically demanding. You answered some emails, you sat in a couple of meetings, you just existed. And yet you feel totally drained? Well, it turns out this isn't about hustle or a lack of grit. It's about the very architecture of your mind and how it processes the world.
Yeah, this feeling. It's so common, but we almost never talk about what's really going on. It's that internal fan just screaming at full blast while your energy bar craters. If that sounds even remotely familiar, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to put a name to this feeling and figure out what's actually happening under the hood.
So what do we call this phenomenon? Let's call it high-resolution burnout. Think of it as the metabolic cost of having a mind that processes the world in stunning 8K, while it seems like almost everyone else is getting by just fine on a standard def signal. And here's the thing, this isn't a bug, it's a feature. But it's a feature that comes with a pretty significant cost.
Let's just reframe this experience right now. You're not lazy. You're not unfocused. You are a high-resolution sentinel. And the real enemy you're fighting every day isn't a deadline or a tough project. It's something called extraneous cognitive load. It's the friction, the static, between your high-precision hardware and a world that is constantly trying to hijack your attention.
To really get our heads around this, we need to dip into the science for a minute. And it all boils down to this fundamental concept from educational psychology called cognitive load theory. Honestly, this is the key. It's the key to unlocking why your mental battery drains so incredibly fast.
The whole theory hangs on this one crucial idea. Think of your brain's working memory like the RAM in your computer. It's incredibly fast, incredibly powerful, but it is absolutely finite. You only have so much of it available for the day, and every single task, every thought, every distraction, it all uses up a piece of that RAM. And inside that finite RAM, there are two forces in a constant state of war. On one side, you've got intrinsic load. This is the good stuff. This is the energy you need for the deep work, for actual problem solving and creating. But on the other side, you have extraneous load. And this is the silent killer. It's the office noise, the emotional labor of just trying to be nice to people, the 1,000 tiny, meaningless decisions that bleed your battery dry without you even noticing.
Okay, so why are some people so much more susceptible to this extraneous load? Well, the answer isn't in your habits, it's in your biology. It's in the way our brains are physically wired to filter, or in this case, not filter, the world around us. And this brings us to a really cool concept called leaky gating.
Research in a field called neuroergonomics gives us this brilliant metaphor. So, you've got the dandelion brain. It can thrive pretty much anywhere, easily filtering out all that background noise. But then, you have the orchid brain. It's much more sensitive. It has a thinner sensory gate, which means it treats every single piece of incoming data, every little shift in a colleague's tone of voice, every flickering light, as a high-priority event that needs to be processed.
And that right there is the core problem of leaky gating, because that sensory filter is so thin, your prefrontal cortex,
Basically, your brain CEO has to constantly step in and clean things up. It's forced to work overtime on defense, spending a huge amount of energy just trying to filter out the world before it could even start doing the work that actually matters.
I mean, just look at this breakdown. It is staggering. For an orchid brain, up to 60% of your daily mental energy can be spent just on this defensive filtering. This is why you feel burned out by noon, even if you feel like you haven't done anything yet. You have. You've been running a high-stakes defensive simulation all morning long just to stay functional.
Now, naturally, in response to this feeling of constant overload, what do most of us try to do? We try to multitask. We think, hey, if I can just do more things at once, I can get ahead of this drain. But as we're about to see, this is probably the worst thing you can possibly do.
Let's just be perfectly clear about this. Multitasking is a total myth, especially for a high-performance brain. It's a low-resolution strategy that simply doesn't work with high-fidelity hardware. It doesn't save you time. It just burns through your most precious and limited resource, your mental RAM.
Okay, so here's what's actually happening in your brain. When you switch from your deep work to just glance at a notification, you aren't just glancing, you are forcing your brain to perform a massive cognitive reboot. You're dumping your entire working memory, all of that complex thought you had loaded up, and then trying to reload it all from scratch a few seconds later.
And how often are we doing this to ourselves? Well, on average, about 100 times a day. 100 times a day, we force our brains to perform this incredibly expensive, energy-sucking operation, all while wondering why we're so dang tired. Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. We know what's happening. So how do we fix it? Well, we have to move from being a passive host for random data to being an active architect of our own attention. And the framework to do that is called the Battery Protocol. This is your game plan. It's 4 simple steps. First, strategic monotasking. 1 task, 90 minutes, 0 distractions. Close the tabs. Second, the decision audit. Automate the small, low-stakes choices, what to eat, what to wear, to save your precious analytical power for what actually matters. Third, data gating. Create a no-input hour at the start of your day. No news, no email, nothing. Let your RAM boot up cleanly. And finally, the somatic flush. When you feel that overload coming on, just close your eyes for 3 minutes and focus only on your breath. It's a quick system reboot to clear the cache. You know, if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. You are not broken, your brain is not flawed, you are a high-fidelity instrument. The problem isn't the instrument itself, it's the incredibly noisy room it's being forced to play in. Your job is to become the sound engineer of your own mind. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important step. The path to reclaiming your energy and your focus, it doesn't start with adding more productivity hacks. It starts by strategically taking things away. So, my question for you is this. Looking at your day, what's the very first distraction you are going to fire?
Today, we're diving into a really different way of thinking about mental exhaustion. You know, it's a framework that's basically designed for those of us whose minds feel like they're constantly overclocked. So let's get right into it. Does this sound familiar to you? You've gotten a full night's sleep, you haven't done anything crazy physically, but by, say, noon, you feel absolutely wiped out. Your brain just feels like an overheating laptop, and everyone's advice is just to hustle harder. But what if that's not the problem at all? So the core idea here is a really powerful reframe. Your fatigue isn't some kind of character flaw. It's actually the side effect of having a very specific and very powerful kind of mind. You're not lazy. You are what we're calling a high-resolution sentinel. Let's break down exactly what that means. So what in the world is high-resolution burnout? Well, it's this very specific type of exhaustion that comes from seeing the world in an incredible, almost overwhelming level of detail, and then paying the price for that clarity. Think about it like this. Some people process the world in, standard definition, right? They filter out most of the background noise. But your brain is recording everything in 8K. Every tiny shift in someone's tone of voice, the flicker of a fluorescent light, it all gets processed. And that exhaustion you feel, that is the real, physical, metabolic cost of all that high-fidelity processing. Okay, so now let's peel back the layers and look at the actual science behind this. There are a couple of key psychological concepts that really explain what's happening under the hood. First up is something called cognitive load theory. And the most important thing to get here is that our working memory, that mental desktop where we're actively thinking, it isn't infinite. It's a limited resource, and it can absolutely get maxed out. And this is where it gets really interesting. That limited capacity gets eaten up by two different things. You've got intrinsic load. That's the good stuff. That's the focused effort you need to solve a tough problem. But then there's extraneous load, and that's all the junk. The office chatter, the constant pings from your phone, the mental drain from 1,000 tiny choices. For a high-resolution mind, that is the real killer.
And why is it the killer? Well, it's because of something called leaky gating. High-resolution minds tend to have a thinner sensory filter. So while other people can just easily ignore the low hum of the world, your brain treats almost every single piece of data coming in as a high-priority alert. It's kind of like having a home security system that goes off every time a leaf falls, and it is absolutely exhausting. So how do we make this feel more real? Let's use a really powerful metaphor that I think perfectly explains where all that mental energy is just disappearing. I want you to literally visualize your brain as a high-performance computer server. Every single morning, you boot up with a fresh but finite amount of mental RAM. That's your processing power for the entire day. The big question is, what are you running on it? Because every unfinished task, every unspoken conflict, every decision you're putting off, each one is like a background app left running, just silently eating away at your processing power. This is what's called the decision tax. For a high-resolution mind, even a tiny decision like, what should I have for lunch, isn't simple. You're running a whole analysis on nutritional value, cost, maybe even the environmental impact. And that analytical superpower, it becomes a cognitive leak when you apply it to these low-stakes decisions. So when that brain fog finally hits, what's really going on? It's not some mysterious cloud that rolls in. It's a technical problem. It's a system-wide lag because you've run out of available RAM. You don't feel slow or stupid because you are slow or stupid. You feel that way because your entire system is overloaded. And here's the fundamental mismatch, right here. Your mind wants to process life at 100 megabits per second, with all the depth and nuance and detail, but your ability to filter out the noise, your regulatory system, is only operating at 1 megabit. And that huge gap is the source of all the friction and ultimately the burnout. So, and this is crucial, the solution is not to just push harder. That's like trying to fix a slow computer by just slamming on the keyboard. The real goal is to stop being a passive host for random data and to become an active architect of your attention. You have to realize your attention isn't this renewable resource. It's a finite currency. The point isn't to work harder. It's to lower that extraneous load so your core creative engine can finally get some air and breathe. Okay, so how do we actually do that? Well, this framework offers a really clear, actionable plan for reclaiming your mental RAM. It's called the Battery Protocol. The protocol has 4 key parts. First, strategic monotasking. This means for a set amount of time, say 90 minutes, you close every single background app and focus on one thing. Second, the decision audit. You have to minimize low-stakes choices. Automate stuff like your meals or what you wear to save that precious analytical energy for what really matters. Third, data gating. This is all about the art of selective ignorance. Try starting your day with just one no-input hour. No news, no social media, no email. Let your RAM boot up cleanly. And finally, the somatic flush. When you feel overloaded, just close your eyes for 3 minutes and focus only on your breath. It's an incredibly powerful way to reboot your system and clear the cache. Let's end with this thought. If you feel this kind of exhaustion, it's not because you are broken or you're flawed. You're a finely tuned, high-fidelity instrument. The problem isn't the instrument. It's the incredibly noisy room you're being forced to play in. The solution is to learn how to find the volume knob. So I'll leave you with this to think about. If you look at your mental dashboard right now, what's that one open loop, that one deferred decision, that one nagging task that you know is draining your power? What is the very first background app you're going to choose to close today?
All right, let's get right into it. If you're someone who feels like your mental battery is just constantly in the red no matter what you do, then this is for you. We're going to break down the actual architecture of burnout and lay out a real framework for getting your mental energy back.
Does this just hit a little too close to home? I mean, you haven't run a marathon or anything, but just existing, just being online has left you completely wiped out. This isn't about being tired. This is something deeper. A constant drain on your most valuable resource.
And here's a really powerful reframe. The source material says you're not lazy, you're not undisciplined. No, you're what's called a high-resolution sentinel. Your mind is basically recording reality in 8K, and that incredible fidelity, well, it comes with a cost in a world full of noise.
So, here's our game plan.
First, we're going to nail down exactly what this 8K mind problem is. Then, we'll dive into the mechanics of cognitive load. We'll look at the decision tax, that hidden fee you pay every single day. And then we pivot to the good stuff, the battery protocol in a super clear 4-step reboot. Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the 8K mind problem. Let's really get to the bottom of this feeling of constant mental fatigue.
So this is the key term we have to wrap our heads around: extraneous cognitive load. This isn't the energy you spend doing your best, most focused work. Not at all. This is the energy cost of everything else: the constant pings, the background noise, the emotional static, all the junk that's trying to hijack your brain's processing power.
I mean, what a perfect analogy, right? You can almost hear it. That internal fan is just whining, your battery life is tanking, and you have no idea which one of those 50 open tabs is the one playing that annoying ad. That's your brain, a super powerful machine just trying to run smoothly in a world that's anything but.
So let's keep building on that. We're moving on to Section 2, diving a bit deeper into the mechanics of why this happens. This is cognitive load explained.
You see, our working memory, it's not infinite. It's caught in this constant tug of war. On one side, you've got intrinsic load. That's the good stuff, the energy for real thinking, for creating something new. But then you've got extraneous load, and that's all the other junk that's eating up your bandwidth. The problem is, the junk is stealing all the resources from the actual work.
So why does this hit some of us harder? Well, the source material points to this fascinating concept called leaky gating. Basically, your brain's spam filter is almost too good. It lets everything through, treating every notification, every sound, every little piece of data as a top priority email. Your brain then has to burn massive amounts of energy just sorting the signal from the noise.
And this, right here, is why the whole idea of multitasking is a total fantasy for a high-performance mind. Every time you switch from what you're doing to check a text, that's not a tiny little hop. It's a full-on system reboot. You're effectively clearing your cache, dumping your entire working memory, and starting from scratch. It's an unbelievably expensive process.
Which is the perfect lead-in to Section 3, your daily decision tax. This is where we see how all those tiny little drains add up to a huge energy crisis by the end of the day.
Just think about it like this. Every single to-do you haven't done, every decision you've put off, each one is like a background app running on your phone, just silently killing your battery. You know that feeling of brain fog? It's not some mysterious cloud, it's just system-wide lag because you've got no RAM left. And this is the trap so many of us fall into. We use our best high-fidelity brain power on the most trivial things. Deciding what to eat for lunch gets the same level of analysis as a career-defining choice. It's a massive, totally unnecessary leak of our cognitive energy. Okay, we've diagnosed the problem inside and out. Enough of that. Let's pivot to the solution. Section 4, the battery protocol. This is the blueprint for taking your energy back.
So the protocol is built on 4 key pillars, all designed to basically restore your system to its factory settings. We've got strategic monotasking, then the decision audit. Number 3 is data gating, and finally, the somatic flush. Let's break down how to actually do each one.
And that brings us to our final section, where the rubber really meets the road. We're turning this framework into actions you can take today. This is a 4-step reboot.
So step 1, strategic monotasking. The key number here is 90 minutes. That's it. For one solid 90-minute block, you give your brain total permission to do one thing and one thing only. Close the tabs, put your phone in another room. Let your brain load one single complex program into its RAM without all those expensive reboots.
Step 2 is the decision audit. This is where you stop wasting that 100-megapixel lens. Automate the small stuff. Seriously, plan your meals for the week. Pick out your clothes the night before. Have a default schedule. You want to save that premium analytical energy for the things that actually matter.
All right, step 3 is data gating. And the number you need to remember is 1 hour. For the very first hour of your day, you practice what's called a no-input hour. That means 0 external input. No news, no email, no social media feeds. You let your mental RAM boot up in a clean, quiet environment before the rest of the world tries to install its junk.
And finally, step 4. This is your emergency reset button, the somatic flush. The moment you feel that buzz of overwhelm, that feeling of too many tabs open, you take just 3 minutes, close your eyes, and focus only on the physical feeling of your breath going in and out. It's a simple little trick that reboots your system and clears out all that temporary sensory noise.
So look, if there's only one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. You are not broken. You're a high-fidelity instrument. The problem was never the instrument itself, it's the incredibly noisy room it's being forced to play in.
The whole goal here is to become an active architect of your own attention. It's about consciously deciding what gets access to your system and finally unplugging the cables that aren't yours to power in the first place.
So stop just being a passive host for all the world's data. It's time to become the active observer of your own mind. Because that, right there, is how you don't just survive in this crazy, noisy world. It's how you reclaim your RAM and actually begin to thrive. Thanks for tuning in.